Yeah, they use him. Well, they got the music too. They
Okay.
any of them anymore, God. They don't even volunteer me. That brings in the grip church down there. That'd be a job to get out of there. It's a big. Yeah, but
No, I'm fine. They don't rain.
All right, let's take our Bibles over to the book of Numbers. We're beginning in chapter 15 and 16, and not going to spend a lot of time in chapter 15. We're going to move on and go into chapter 16. There's a couple interesting things that happen in the book of Numbers, chapter 15. All of it is interesting and required for the Word of God, or it wouldn't be in there. If God didn't have a purpose, we wouldn't have it. Yet at the same time, we see a lot of repetition, and chapter 15 is a lot of repetition for God's people to understand when you sin and the type of sin, here's how you take care of it. Here's what you do, and so God's going to tell them again, this is what you need to do. So we'll look at that here in a moment. Mike Starkey has our opening prayer, and we're going to ask him if he would to lead us in our opening prayer.
Our Father in heaven, thank you for allowing us to come together in this building tonight to primarily study from your word. Thank you for the health that you've given to us, that we can do this, and thank you for the safe passage here. We do ask you to be with Peter Ray and all the other teachers and all the other people that are in various classes tonight. Be with all of us that we can get a proper understanding of your word. And may we always strive to improve our knowledge, that we can improve our faith, and we ask you to help us with our wisdom, that we know how to use the knowledge that we have. Thank you for your Son, and please forgive us of our sins. In your Son's name, amen.
Mike.
The reason they do it over and over is because he's teaching us, and you teach you reminding us that we see him every day, and you have to keep doing it so we don't forget.
Bill made a comment beginning in class and said the reason that he repeats himself over and over is so we don't forget. And I think that's it. I think that is absolutely a large part of the repetition that we see in the book of Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, lest we forget. And we have to remember, they did not have a 66-volume, 2736 book of the Bible that they had on their phone. They had the book of Numbers, they had the book of Deuteronomy, they had books that were passed out, and they didn't have a convenient, they had the scrolls, and so maybe there's multiple sources here that they were able to see and to use. I said last week that we've got to be careful not being frustrated, and I've tried to mention that numerous times, looking at the Hebrew children who become the nation of Israel, and their nickname, we've nicknamed them the grumblers, and I agree with that 100%, but I've often said we have to be careful that we're not overly critical of them, because we see ourselves in the children of Israel and in the nation here, because they know what they're supposed to do, they've been told what to do, they have done what they're supposed to do, and then they fall, and then they grumble, and it's almost like they get into this cycle of what they do. Very similar to the book of Judges. I say that because in chapter 14, they refuse to go in. At the very end of chapter 14, there is a small skirmish where they go up against the Amalekites and the Philistines, and it's almost like a half-hearted effort that some of these people decide, we're going to go in and we're just going to see, and they get beat. And God will not allow them to enter in. And he's going to make them wander for 40 years. And then the sin offerings and what to do. And notice again that the Bible begins that God spoke to Moses and Moses told the people. And you're going to see that theme repetitively over and over and over. Now, in chapter 12 and 13, who rebelled against Moses? Now you got to go back. Don't go forward. We're going back for just a minute. Who rebelled? Chapters 12 and 13. Brother and sister Miriam and Aaron have rebelled against him. And you remember Miriam becomes leprous for a period of time. There's a big problem that happens. Well, in chapter 15, God's going to explain, and I think there's no coincidence, although it's not chronological, there is now inserted in chapter 15, here's what you do when you commit sin. I want to drop down to one specific part of chapter 15. I want to go through that just a little bit, because in verses 1 through 21, God talks about how this offering is to be made. And depending on what offering is being made based on what sin has been committed, then that's going to tell you about your ephah of grain and your hin of oil, which is basically 2 quarts and 1 quart, 2 liters and 1 liter. I do not know confidently the reason that it is this ephah of and this hin of. Now, everything that we read says 2 quarts or 2 liters and 1 quart and 1 liter, the ephah and the hin. But if you go back and study this, we're not going to spend a lot of time on it, but 1 Kings, I believe, Ezekiel. 1 Kings, Ezekiel, Leviticus, and Numbers all make reference to when you do this and you see this combination of the ephah, the fine flour, and the oil, that it is something that is dealing with high importance, royalty, something that is very delicate or dainty. And that's not what we see in the meat that's being offered in Numbers chapter 15, but it is, if you think about that we are presenting to God. And so that this mixture of what they are offering shows the royalty of God and the mindset that you would do this for the people who are of a high status, like a governor, like a king. Then you need to do this for me, and he demands the best yet again. Now, let's drop down for just a moment before we get into chapter 16, which I really want to get into. But I want to begin in verse 30 and basically to the end of chapter in chapter 15. But beginning here in verse 30, the top of my Bible there at verse 30 says, law concerning presumptuous sin. Now, that was inserted by man. But it does give us a good idea of what is happening. And the reason this individual is referred to as doing something presumptuous is because it is the Sabbath. Now, what does the Sabbath mean? What is this day, the Sabbath? It is to be set apart and to worship God. And think about this. And on the 6th day, God... So we see the precedent set by God that this is a day of rest, and this is a day that you're going to worship me, and this is a day you're going to set aside for me. I'm giving you 7. 1 is going to be dedicated to me. Give me a couple examples of what you could not do on the Sabbath that God said you cannot do. You had to prepare your food ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Kay. Do you have another thing? I started talking too quick. Okay. You could not prepare food. You could not chop up. You could not prepare food. So you had to prepare ahead of time what you would be eating. Even to the point that we're not talking about putting chicken in the oven. We're talking about food that was already made and ready to eat, that you didn't have to do anything, which in our culture may seem a little bit inconvenient. However, Luella, I'm going to come to you. If you were preparing a meal, I'm going to ask you to answer this. If you were preparing a meal that you could not prepare ahead of time, or that you could not fix the day of, but you had to get it ready on Friday, to serve on Saturday, no preparation, what would you serve? So think about something that you would make now. But see, everything that we make, you say, oh, we'll just do something simple. We'll patty out the burgers. The other day, this is the first time in our life we've ever done this. We bought pre-pattied hamburgers. Have you ever done that? Wow. I think the term is game changer. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, it's not Doug Dara beef. Let's not get crazy. But it was patty, and all you had to do was season it, put it down, peel off a piece of paper, and there it was. I mean, no. Done. Oh, it was so nice. But you couldn't do that because now you got to heat it up. You can't build the fire. You can't do that. You cannot do this. So hamburgers wouldn't work. Even hamburgers are easy. Wouldn't work. What would you provide? What would you fix? Fruit? Bread that's already been prepared. So you would cut up your fruit. You would cut this up. What? Nuts. Berries. Anything like that. What's that? Honey. Everybody's thinking, if I was living back then, what I would do. If you were doing it right now today, what would you fix? Chicken from Price Cutter. There you go. That would work. I'm thinking turkey or chicken salad. Yeah, what's that? A pizza. You know, there's lots of things that you can do. So it's not like they're going to starve. God's not putting them in a hardship. But think about the seriousness that God has made, beginning in verse 30 of chapter 15, where God says, I don't want you working. I don't want you building fires, cooking food. I don't want you making beds and sweeping rugs. I don't want you distracted from your day of rest and worship, dedication, service to me and not self. And in chapter 15, verses 30 through 31, what is this individual doing? Or the example is they find a man and he's doing what? He's picking up sticks. How hard of a job is this? How big of a deal is this? What do they do? What does God say to do to the man? Take him out and stone him. Now, think about this. He's cleaning up the yard, and he's taking the sticks out of the yard, taking care of what he's supposed to take care of, and he's putting it in the bundle over here so he can use it for the fire. It's not that big of a deal. And didn't God say, now I'm being a little bit antagonistic, if your ox falls in a ditch on the Sabbath day, what do? You get it out. You go get this. If your ox falls in a ditch, you go get it out. Now, I'm using that as an antagonist, but I want you to think about this. Is the sticks on the ground that this man picking up the same as the ox in the ditch that God said you could go get? And why? What makes this different? Oxen are alive, and the sticks are. You can pick up sticks on a Thursday or on the next day, Sunday. You can pick up sticks. Anybody else? It's an idea of what is priority. God recognizes, and this is what's amazing to me. If your ox falls in a ditch on the Saturday, on the Sabbath, God expects you to go get it. He understands livelihood. He understands life gets in the way, and there are things that need to happen. This, however, is not equivalent to making a choice to go out and conveniently go do this for yourself. I'm seeking to go pick up sticks to do this now. Why? Because I did not plan and prepare ahead and bundle these sticks already. I did not do what I was supposed to in preparation for. I did not get the fruit. I did not get the nuts and honey. I did not get the chicken from the IGA. I didn't do what I was supposed to do, and now I'm trying to do it. And God said no. Number two, what else makes this so wrong? And that is, it's very presumptuous that I'm going to violate God's law. I'm choosing to go against what God has told me, and I'm making a conscientious decision to violate dedication to God. which is interesting to me because just previously in chapter 15, before verses 30 and 31, God talks about making atonement, making sacrifice for unrecognized sin. I didn't realize what I was doing that was wrong. Do you see the grace and mercy that God offers us? I did not realize this was a violation of law. The congregation, the whole people may do this, or an individual may do this, and here's how you make it right with God. Now that you know that it was wrong, you can go to God and say, I'm sorry, then you can make the right sacrifice. But what this man did, gathering sticks on the Sabbath, that God takes it so serious is, number one, you procrastinated, and number two, you violated deliberately. And that's why we have the word presumptuous. You presumed, and you didn't follow, and you didn't do what was right. You knew better, and you chose to put yourself in the seat of God. And God gets very angry. Go back to verses 32 now down to about verse 34, and notice what the Bible says. Now, while the children of Israel were in the wilderness, now they're wandering. This is the 40 years, and we're just now starting. And they found a man gathering sticks on the Sabbath day, and those who found him gathering sticks brought him to Moses and Aaron and to all the congregation, and they put him under guard because it had not been explained what should be done to him. Now, I'm fascinated with a small part of this, and that is the people do not excuse it. Oh, it's not a big deal. Don't worry about it. No, we need to inquire about God because we don't know what to do. And I like it. I don't know what to do. We have no information on this. We're going to have to go to God and ask him. And so they take the man, they bring him in. Not necessarily that they are policing themselves, but they're trying to serve one another is how I'm seeing it. That they're trying to say, we need to figure out what's going on. And how do we deal with something like this? Go back to the chapter again now in verse 34. Or verse 35, and then the Lord said to Moses, so who is God speaking to? Moses. Who is the leader bringing down the judgment from God? Moses. The Lord spoke to Moses, the man shall surely be put to death. All the congregation shall along with him with stones outside. And then go up to verse 36, you can see the carrying on of what's going to happen. Verse 37, and again the Lord spoke to Moses saying, speak to the children of Israel and tell them to make tassels, blue tassels, and place them on the garments, and he tells them where to place them on the garments as a reminder. God takes it serious. God is telling them, here is how you handle it, and I don't want you to forget this. I don't want you to forget sacrifices that must be made. I don't want you to forget that I demand. Not just desire and deserve, I demand. This is the attention that you give me. Think about what he says. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Why? I'm a jealous God. I can't have anyone else. Bill.
I want to go back a little bit.
Sure.
Beginning in 13 and 14, they talk about this stranger that's sojourning with them. And then again down through these other verses, he's mentioned again that they have to do exactly the same thing that the children of Israel did, even though he's not a Jew, I guess.
Mm-hmm. But if you're going to be among us, you have to live like us.
Has to do the exact same thing that they do.
Right.
All through this chapter, etc.
Right. Right. Over and over. Which tells us what, by the way? If the sojourner, which is this word stranger or alien, if the stranger, if the alien, if the sojourner is among us, and their expectation is you have to live by the standards that God has given us, what does that mean?
Don't stay home from services if you got company.
Okay. Don't stay home. Okay, that's one, but what else? Who is amenable? Who is amenable? Who is accountable? Who has to follow God's law? Everyone. Don't turn there. Just think about it in your minds in Matthew chapter 19 along verse 9. When Jesus said, and whoever divorces his wife except for adultery, that word whoever is universal. To the Christian, to the non-Christian, to the believer, to the non-believer, to the atheist, to the proven, I know God exists. God's law is for all men are amenable to the law of Christ. All men have to answer to the law that God has made. So you cannot say, oh, I didn't follow that. I followed this over here, so you're going to have to excuse me. Not according to God. And from the very beginning, this was the case. From the very beginning, you have to follow what God said.
What we think is small in our sight, he is teaching them to be prepared so they can do the other things they need to do too.
Yeah. What we think is small, God has showed them how to prepare so that they can do the other things that they need to do also, just in case you didn't hear Luella. And I agree totally. Chapter 15 is amazing to me because it deals with, again, some tedious matters. But at the end of the chapter, he's showing us, remember. What is the reason that it says, this do in remembrance of me? Why do we have it on the first day of the week? And we understand that it's every first day of the week. And it's not just when it's convenient. I appreciate that there are people in the world who say we're only going to do it 3 times a year because we don't want it to become meaningless. And when they do it, that entire service is dedicated to it. But that's not what God said. I appreciate the thought behind it. But that's not what God said. That's loosening or binding where God has not loosened or bound. God said upon the first day of the week. You know, I've often wondered, and I'm not the original thought creator of this, but I've often wondered, if I said to you on the first day of the week, I'll give you $100. Upon the first day of the week, we will gather together and I'll give you $100. I wonder how many of us would say, now, I'm only going to do it 3 times a year because I want it to be special. Or would the argument be, look, the first day of the week is every 7 days. That's what it says. And then I say, okay, does that mean this $100 means more to me than this cup and this unleavened bread? Got to be careful how our mindset is and what we are doing and how we think, and got to be very careful.
We've kind of become people that, oh, God's just love. And when it comes right down to Judgment Day, he's just going to love everybody and everybody's going to be saved. And it doesn't matter, whether you pick the fruit of the vine and the cup every first day of the week, or you do it 3 times a year because you want it to be special. He's going to accept that. We've gotten away from, no, God said what he said, he meant what he said, and that's why it's important to read the Old Testament, because he didn't give those people second chances. You committed the sin, you're dead. There's no question about it.
You remember the preacher Lenny Santee from this area, Lenny? Lenny had a great sermon, and it was on why we love baby Jesus. You know why we love baby Jesus? Because he's cute, and he's manageable, and he doesn't say anything, and you just take care of this, and you don't have to worry about it. And it was the idea of why we like this idea, but when Jesus grows up, we reject him. When he begins to speak, we reject him. When he begins to require, we reject him. Babies don't require. Babies are just so cute. Oh, there's a couple little inconveniences, but babies are just so, but then they grow up, And I think the same thing in this of what we're doing. Thoughts or comments on 15 before we go into 16? All right, chapter 16. This one makes me boiling mad. I get so angry, and it is not the rebellion of Korah, it's what happens after the rebellion. Do you know what happens after the rebellion? So you've got these 3 individuals, Dothan, is it Abiathar? Is that the... Okay, yeah, so you've got... Korah is the leader of this, and the complaint is, what the complaint has always been since chapter 12, Moses, you are taking on too much. You think you are a prince over us. You're trying to be the Pharaoh of this nation. We had a Pharaoh back there, and now we're going to have this prince up here. You're trying to rule us. You're not right. And Moses says, okay, here's what we'll do. You gather up the 250 chiefs who agree with you, and we will stand before God tomorrow, and God will make the decision. And if God says, Moses, step aside, I step aside. And if God says, Korah, you're the leader, Korah, you're the leader. The next day, they gather at the tabernacle. And God speaks. And the 250 die. Now, it's interesting that they brought their incense to offer sacrifice, and their expectation must have been, God's going to see what we're saying. God's going to change to our will. And I say that because it never specifically says that, but what else are they doing? They're already saying we do not accept God's chosen leader. It's clear that Moses is the leader. If you didn't know it, after Miriam turned to leprosy white, and this happened to Aaron's little sister, you should know now. But what do? They just fall into that rut. And there are people that no matter what, they are so bitter that they're always going to be antagonistic. There are people in this world that frustrate us so much, and be careful that we are not those people that all we do is pick. Have you seen that person? Oh, I've cleaned all day. I'm so glad you're here. I've got the pot roast in. I vacuumed. I've done everything. Oh, you did? Leave. I do not want you in my home. Because you can find mistakes like that all over the place. Not because I don't want to be around those people. Now listen, I'm not saying don't do your best. You absolutely do your best. You always put your best effort and you do your best. But I'm not looking to belittle something. I told you baseball is over. Softball just begun. See, I fooled you. So here's Kelly Lynn, and she's working on how to pitch. And so here's step 1, here's step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's the 9 steps that she's working on. 100 times a day, that's what we do. 10 times, and then an hour later, 10 times, an hour later, 10 times. You say, oh, Peter Ray, 100 times every hour, that's too much. No, it's not. She's a kid. She's fine. Don't worry about it. But it's that repetition where I'm telling her, this is what you have to do. If you really want to be a good pitcher, this is what you've got to learn so that this just becomes a rhythm and it's natural and this is what you do. And you're so focused so that when this jughead in the audience is like, come on, she can't pitch, she's no good. You're not even, because you know the rhythm of what you're supposed to be doing. So we push ourselves. But if you're that person who's just looking for, well, your shoes aren't exactly, the bows aren't perfect here. I mean, where does it become that we're just trying to make you feel bad? And that's the feeling that I get from Korah and these other individuals, that we're just picking all the time. Their complaint, Korah and those who are rebelling, and there are thousands, by the way. Remember, we're talking about millions of people as a nation, and there are thousands of people. How many people end up dying? Do you remember? I remember the number. How many people? 14,700 people. Good job, Chuck. 14,700 people are going to die. Not including, if my estimation is correct here in reading it, not including the 250 that died with their censers. So here are these people that come up and they have their censers, and God strikes them dead. And then God says, pick up the censers and hammer them into a cover for the bronze altar. What's the reason? Why take these censers and hammer them into a cover for the bronze altar? God never does anything without a reason. What does he say? What's the reason? Think about this. At the end of chapter 15, they put the blue tassels on the bottom of their robes for what? It's a reminder. And now this bronze cover for the bronze altar is a reminder. Remember when you rebelled? And we put this cover over the altar? And this altar is fought by the 250 chiefs who wanted to be preeminent, who would not accept my selection. I don't want you to ever forget. I lead you. Fast forward a few hundred years when they said, give us a king. And God said to Samuel, they have not rejected you, they have rejected, they've rejected God. They've rejected me, he told Samuel. Don't be mad that you told them that he'll, if you get a king, he'll tax you, and he did. If you get a king, he'll put your sons into military, into army, and yep, he did. He'll take his daughters as wives, 700, 300, yep, he did. Everything that Samuel tried to warn, and the people just wouldn't listen. And I'm looking at him, I'm going, man, was it just about 40 days? Because if you think about the timeline, 40 days they spied out the land of Canaan. Then they had a little bit of a conversation. So right before that, so it's less than 3 months. It can't even be 60 days. And there's another rebellion. And we just saw her have leprosy. And now we're acting like it never even happened. And we're rebelling again. And now God is going to require their life. And here's what makes me mad. After the 250, after the people of Korah who followed Korah, after they're dead, let's get to the verse and read it. Somebody read verse 41. Now, again, I'm emphasizing this for a reason. God has already shown himself numerous times, but literally, a little over 40 days ago, Miriam had leprosy because they were going against Moses and saying, Moses, you shouldn't be the leader. Now, Korah is dead. The 250 are dead. And look at verse 41. Somebody read verse 41, good and loud for everybody to hear.
On the next day, all the congregation of the children of Israel complained against Moses and Aaron, saying, you have killed the people of the Lord.
I'm so mad. I mean, and I'm going to tell you something. There's nothing wrong, but I got a couple things going on in my personal life right now that really, this is what it feels like. That you're trying to do what's right, and you're trying to help someone see what's right, and what I'm going through is nothing and doesn't amount to a hill of beans. But I know that what I'm doing or what I did was right. And even though it was proven that I was right, there are still a couple people who are saying and going around saying, well, Peter Ray did that. I've already been shown that what we did and the decision that we made was right. Here's Korah dead. Miriam had leprosy, 250 chiefs. And in verse 41, who's complaining? Read that one more time, Kay. Who's complaining?
On the next day,
All the people. And they say to Moses or about Moses that he did what? Yeah, how did Moses do? What do you mean it's my fault?
Earlier in the chapter, it said what was going to happen. Moses said, I don't have nothing to do with it. And then it come about, and then they still blame it.
Now, what is it about these people that what Bill just said is what they do? Why?
It's kind of like today where nobody wants to take responsibility for their actions.
No accountability. Blame somebody else. There's no reason for me to be mad at myself for what I did. I need to blame some. Do you know why I have a weight problem? Now, I've done better over the years, and this is probably in my adult life a 42, 44 size. This is probably the best I've done in my life right now. Do you know why I have a weight problem? And I'm not pointing to these three. I'm pointing to that one over there. Do you know why? Because she said, now you eat all your plate. You clean your plate. But I didn't want to finish my plate. Mom made me finish my plate. My stinking mom made wonderful pies and cakes and all kinds of great. We used to take bread and fry it and roll it in powdered sugar. And how dare you? Well, see, it was manipulation, Caroline. That's right. Carolyn, I'm sorry. Carolyn, I'm sorry. I've struggled with that the entire time, Carol. I'm sorry. You see how nonsensical that is, that I'm going to blame Mom for feeding me, for taking care of me. Oh, she used to take us. We'd come home sometimes and we'd stop at the Dairy Queen. Cruel and vicious. Think about what these people are saying. Seriously. Moses, you killed. How did Moses? There is no logical explanation for this at all. And it burns me up. Because there are people who are wrong and will not say, God, I'm sorry. God, I'm sorry. Boy, I really messed this up. Moses, we've just been foolish and I'm sorry. Moses, we should have said something. When Korah came to us, I'm sorry. You know, Moses, here's what I did, Moses. I got jealous. Moses, here's what I did. We followed this guy. He was very, I'm not excusing my behavior, but he was very charismatic. Oh, Moses, can you forgive me? And Moses, being the most humble man on earth, would say, don't worry about it. Let's do better next time. We're okay. That's not what's happened. Moses, this is your fault that we lost nearly 15,000 people. Moses, you're the worst leader God ever picked. That's what they're saying. Now, I told you I'm going through something. It's not a church-related matter. It's outside. It's just the opinion of some people who are just mad because I was proven to be right, and they were adamant that they were right and they were wrong. It doesn't happen all the time. I'm not saying I'm always right. I'm just saying this was a thing where I was, and I'm not even saying I understand what Moses is going through completely, but there's a part of me where I'm like, man, I get that. And it frustrates me because I've also been on the other side of it. Children grow, and there comes a point through the maturation, the normal process, that we will lie so that we don't have to admit that we were wrong. And we will stand there knowing that what we are claiming happened is not what happened. And it's almost impossible for children to back down because they don't want to be wrong. And then when we do this as adults, we're acting like children. And that's what the children, the Hebrew children, are doing right now. They're infantile. And they don't want to admit God has blessed us so much and done so much good for us. I don't struggle with my weight because of what happened literally 40 years ago. I struggle with my weight because of what happened 3 days ago and the choices that I make. It's not your fault. You know what's really bad? Amantha and Kelly Lynn are at Oakwood Road. I got to ride home with her tonight. I'd have never used that illustration if I had remembered that she drove me here. Now the whole way home, she went, "Hey, you want to go to the Dairy Queen? How about you, big boy? You want to go?" And you know what? I'll go. All right. That's 15 and 16. We're going to stop there. We'll pick up and going to try to do a few chapters here coming up, but the story, the narrative gets very rich from here on out. This is phenomenal. The book and the tediousness is about to end, and this is really going to be fantastic.
Well, I have the invitation tonight, and before I get started, I love to play music, and I don't mean on the radio. I mean, I like to get an instrument with strings on it and play. And 10, 15 years ago, Tim Gump and Sherry and the girls and Rhonda and I started getting together and trying to play some bluegrass, and we started playing around places and stuff, and went out on the ridge and played out the sagebrush and did a couple of festivals. And one night I said to them, somebody was, kind of nervous like I am now. And I said, don't worry, if you mess up just a little bit, it kind of gets the people with you, they're wishing you do good. So it kind of causes them to be on your side if you mess up a little bit, But so tonight I'm going to try not to earn your your goodwill tonight, but we have the invitation at the end of most services, and the reason that we do that is to let people know, if there happens to be someone who's not a Christian, to know what they need to do to be saved. We talk about hearing the gospel and believing it, and believing the things that were taught by Jesus in it, how we should live our lives, to repent of those things that we've done wrong, and then to confess that Jesus is truly the Son of God, and then to be baptized. And we all know these things. We hear them almost every service. We do that. And then we also say, live faithfully until death. And for most of us, that's where we're at. We're in that place where we're trying to live faithful unto death. And Paul talked about the race of Christianity, it being a race. And in a race, it doesn't matter how fast you start. It doesn't matter how well you run, how well you overcome the obstacles that are there. If you don't finish, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. Tonight I want to talk a little bit about two apostles, Peter and Judas. These are two of the apostles that are widely known as those who failed Christ at different points. And certainly Peter did when he denied Christ 3 times. And Judas, of course, betrayed Christ. So we may have a little empathy for them ourselves because we fail, don't we, from time to time. So let's just think about what those guys knew about Jesus, what they had seen him do before. Well, they saw him feed thousands of people. We have 2 different things in the Bible about that. And the Bible also says, these are written that you may believe, but he did many other things. So I don't know how many thousands of people Jesus fed. But he did it with nothing, basically. And then he also walked on the water. Now, these guys saw him do this stuff, or they got a firsthand report from their brothers that were there with him, but mostly saw it. He walked on the water. Peter, he stepped out and walked for a little ways with him. He calmed the sea in mid-storm. Now, a storm will come and hit pretty hard, and it'll leave pretty quick sometimes. But once the ocean gets stirred up, it does not stop. It goes for a while, And when Jesus said, peace be still, it was still. They saw Jesus do things that they couldn't deny. He was the Son of God. He raised a man from the dead, Lazarus, of course. And with just one word, not one word, but with one statement, Jesus kept a woman from being stoned to death because she was taken in adultery. And just through his words. So, you can say, well, that really wasn't miraculous, but it was God spoken, and Jesus did it. So one time he was taken to the edge of the city, and he was to be thrown off the cliff to be killed. And he suddenly turns and walks back through the people, and we don't know how that happened. Was it miraculous? Was it because God struck their minds and they just couldn't remember why they were there, and so he left? Or they locked their arms at their sides so they could not throw him off the cliff? Or did he say something amazing like he did with the woman? Did he say something that just made them all turn and go away, and he walked away too? Well, the point I'm just trying to make is that these guys that followed him, these apostles, they saw these things. You know, they believed these things. They knew these things, more than that. We believe in Jesus because we read about it, but these guys actually saw this stuff. It makes me wonder, having seen these things, what would make Peter deny Christ 3 times? 3 times after he had been told by Christ, you are going to deny me before the rooster crows. And when the rooster crows, what does Peter do? He goes away and he weeps bitterly, it says. Well, you have to feel compassion for Peter because of the things that he saw and then still failed, you know. And so failing is part of being a Christian. Let's talk about Judas for just a minute. Let me make a quick point about him. He also saw Jesus, the miracles that he did, and yet Judas betrayed him. And he even was kind of told that he would be the one that would do it. Now think about Judas. Judas was a greedy man. That was his problem, wasn't it? We all have different problems. He was a greedy man. He held the bag, and he put his hand in the bag and took money when he felt like doing it. Now, I'm just arguing like a case for Judas, what he might have been thinking. And I think the Bible kind of hints at that, the fact that he was sorry for what he had done. But he gets a chance to get 30 pieces of silver. Now, if you got 30 pieces of silver today, you got a bunch of money. And back then, it wasn't any less. It was probably a lot more. And so this was a bunch of money. And Judas had seen Jesus walk back through a crowd after being taken. So what's the big deal to go and point out who Jesus is? Every day, and Jesus himself said, every day I was with you. You know, so what's the big deal? They haven't done anything. They can't, they're not going to do anything. But as soon as Judas realized that he had been condemned, he takes the money. This greedy man takes the money back, throws it down at the feet of the people that had given it to him. They say, you deal with this. He said, I've condemned an innocent man, and you deal with it. So what does Peter do? What does Peter do? Well, Peter, talk about him, he goes away, weeps bitterly, but we see that after the death of Jesus, he's one of the first ones to go to the tomb. He, after the women come back and say he is risen, he runs to the tomb. The point with Peter is that he did not quit, but what did Judas do? He went straight out and hanged himself. The only point I'm really trying to make tonight is that don't quit. The devil will try to tell you, you keep having this same problem. You're not going to get over this. Just give up and quit. Or that was so bad that God cannot forgive you. He won't forgive you for that. Of course, that's not right. God is not willing that any should perish, so that all should come to repentance. Tonight, if you're not a Christian, it would be a wonderful time for you to be baptized if you haven't been. If you need to know more about the steps to becoming a Christian, almost everyone here can tell you that, or you can talk to anyone here in this. If you're here and you've sinned in a public way, and you want to make that right, there's no better time than now to come forward. And even if you just are having a problem that you can't deal with, you don't have to say what it is. You don't have to do anything. I know these people. They're good people. And they'll be on your side because people make mistakes. We're all in this together. These people will be rooting for you. So if we can do anything to encourage you to continue your fight to be like Christ, come forward.
Blessed are they who do his commandments. They shall cling the tree of life. Into the city they shall enter. They are victors in the strife. Blessed, blessed, blessed are they. Into the city they shall enter. Blessed, blessed, blessed are they. Blessed are they who do his commandments. They shall wear the robes of white. Under his portals God shall lead them. They shall serve him day and night. Blessed, blessed, blessed are they. Into the city they shall enter. Blessed, blessed, blessed are they. Blessed are they who do his commandments. They shall stand before the throne. Into the life of joy eternal, God shall claim them for his own. Blessed, blessed, blessed are they. Into the city they shall enter. Blessed, blessed, blessed are they. Go ahead and be seated. We'll have our announcements. Oh, closing prayer. I'm sorry. You have closing prayer.
Pray with me, please. Our great Heavenly Father, we want to thank you for what your Son did. He went to Calvary and died for our sins. We also would like to thank you for all the things that you do for us. You've gave us such a beautiful and wonderful day today. We'd also like to thank you for letting us all be here and to hear your word tonight and obey your word and honor you. And we'd like to ask you now to be with our sick and take care of them and watch over them.